everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I can see attendees still joining. The number is still moving. But we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who can see my screen, this is the list of the webinars for the rest of the week, and then that's it. We had many last week. We have many more this week. So please do join us for others. So I will introduce first, I'll introduce us. I am Kim Dixit, the CEO and co-founder of the Red Pen, here a Mumbai-based education consulting company, which has been operating for the last 9 years and helping support families with educational choices from definitely the undergraduate level, which is what we're talking about today, and also MBA, PhD, masters, also boarding schools and other things. So we do specialize in all those areas. And my partner, Namita Mehta, who is the president of the Red Pen, is here tonight to help me moderate this amazing panel of admissions representatives from the University of California campuses. So we have Lindsey Fogleman from UC San Diego, UC San Diego. We have David Joyner from UC Santa Cruz and Jun Wang from UC Riverside. And I was mentioning this earlier, if anyone heard me, I don't remember if we were on there, and that this is I'm very excited to moderate this panel because I also went to one of the UC campuses, but none of these three. I went to UC Santa Barbara, who could not join us this evening, but I think there's a lot of things to recommend the education that's offered and the system and the amazing resources and faculty that are available on all these campuses. So I'm really excited that these guys are here to share this with you. So Lindsey, I'm gonna let you take over. Wait, let me just first, mention that the way we're gonna do this with question and answer is you have a question, the audience, you have a question and answer box. Please put your questions in the box. We will either ask the whoever you've addressed the question to directly, or we will kind of mix those questions in with all the other questions we get and make sure that everyone's questions more or less get covered. So put the question in the box whenever you think of it, and it will be answered after all the presentations and the question and answers starts. So with that, I shall hand it over to Lindsey.
Thank you so much. What I'm going to do real quick is share a PowerPoint presentation that I have.
Yeah, you should be able to just kick me off of here. Yeah, perfect. All right, I'm gonna close my camera while you talk so no one's distracted by me.
Fantastic. Okay. So, are you able to see my slide? Maybe David.
Yes, yes.
So good morning from San Diego. I know for many of you it is evening, but here it is morning time. My name is Lindsey Fogleman. I'm the Assistant Director of International Admissions at UC San Diego. I've been there since 2012, so I'm very excited to be able to speak to you today about the university. I'm also an alum, so I did attend UC San Diego as well. A little bit about San Diego. We have about 300 days of sunshine a year. It's a beautiful place to live. Our students are located up on the cliff, or our campus is up on the cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It's about a 10-minute walk down for students to be able to go to the beach. We are the second largest city in California, 8th largest city in the United States. So a lot of resources and different things available within San Diego itself. I know often the impression people get from movies and TV shows is that it's a small beach town, when in fact it is one of the largest cities in the United States. It's a large campus. It's about 1,200 acres of land, so it can take 30 minutes to walk from one side to the other, but it's a beautiful campus, and I would highly recommend being able to visit if you can at some point. Our average temperature as well is about 77 degrees, which is about 25 degrees Celsius. At UC San Diego, we have about 130 different majors that we offer across 5 disciplines. So we have the arts and humanities, biological sciences, physical sciences, our Jacobs School of Engineering, and our social sciences. We also offer majors in the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, such as marine biology. And then we have health science majors like public health. Some of our majors are considered capped, and so that means that there's far more students interested in enrolling in those majors than there are spaces available. And so we do encourage students interested in these capped majors to also indicate an alternate major that is not capped on their application, so that we can consider them for admission to that alternate major as well, if we're not able to offer them a spot in, say, something like computer science. UC San Diego is a top-ranked university, so we are a large research university. We receive over $1 billion a year in research funding. Our students have the opportunity to get into research labs in their first year, to present at national conferences, to be part of patents and publish in academic journals. One of the rankings that we're really proud of is that we are considered #1 for graduating women in STEM programs. So our ladies have lots of opportunities to really get involved in those STEM majors, in the research, and in all the work that's going on in campus. A little bit about our undergraduate student population. We have about 30,000 undergraduate students at UC San Diego. About 20% of those students are international students. Of the students that enter the university, about 2/3 of them enter as first years or freshman students, and about 1/3 enter as transfers. And we're about 50% male, 50% female, about half and half. One of the really unique things about UC San Diego is our college system. So this has nothing to do with major. You can be any major in any college, but what the college system does is it gives students more of a small college feel while still having access to the large research university that UC San Diego is. So students can be any major in any college, but this college system sets up their general education requirements, academic advising, other student support services. It's where you live if you live on campus. And it's just a great way to be able to set up that home base for you. When you're part of 30,000 undergraduate students at the university, being part of the smaller community and the college system with 4,000 to 5,000 students can really make you feel like you have more of that home base and that individualized attention. A little bit about our admissions requirements, and with the University of California system, we have some system-wide requirements, and then individual campuses will have selection requirements. But the basics are that we look for what we call A through G courses, which are college prep classes, things like math, English, sciences, elective courses, and then we look at a weighted GPA that is taken from 10th and 11th grades. Also, the University of California does require the SAT or ACT exam with the essay or writing section, but due to the current COVID-19 pandemic, we understand that a number of SAT and ACT testing dates have been canceled worldwide, and therefore UC is temporarily suspending standardized test requirement for students applying for fall 2021. So just that cycle only at this time. We also do a holistic review process of applications. So we're going to look at a lot more than just your GPA and your test scores. We'll look at the rigor of your schedule. Did you take on honors-like classes? Have you been in academic enrichment programs in the summer? And then, of course, we have what we call the personal insight questions, or sometimes you hear personal statements or essay questions or other things. With UC, we provide you with 8 prompts, and you'll select 4 that you answer. And we can consider that information kind of like an interview, since we don't interview you. So it's your opportunity to kind of write that information down for us to read as we review your applications. A little bit about our numbers. This year, we actually exceeded 100,000 applications for undergraduate admission at UC San Diego. We admit about 32% of our applicant pool, and that's pretty consistent year to year. You'll also see our middle 50% GPA that's listed here, 4.03, 4.28, and then our middle 50% for our admitted students for the SAT is about 1320 to 1510. So that can kind of give you an idea if you fall within that range of students that have been admitted to UC San Diego in the past. I'm not going to go into the details here, but just know that UC San Diego and the UC system has an option for transfer as well, and that requires 60 semester units, which is typically about 2 years of full-time coursework. And what you'll see about transfer admission is that our admit rate is a little bit better. So where for freshmen it was a 32% admit rate, for our transfers we have about a 56% admit rate. And then just the information about if you're interested in applying, it is the University of California app and not the, we don't take the Common App or any of the other consortium apps that you'll see. The application for the University of California opens on August 1st. You can actually submit that application between November 1st and November 30th. And then for UC San Diego, our admissions decisions generally come out in mid-March, and you have to make that decision by May 1st if you want to attend. And then my last slide here is just some information about if you have additional questions we're not able to get to today. You can do virtual advising with our admissions staff. We are available Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific time. So here it's about almost 9 a.m. So our appointments will be starting shortly, and you can make those appointments on our website listed here. We also have an email address, admissionsreply@ucsd.edu. And the last thing is, if you haven't had the opportunity to visit our campus before, I highly recommend checking out our virtual campus tour, which the website's listed here. It's a great way to see the campus and see if you see yourself fitting in there. So thank you all so much for allowing me to be here today and speak to you, and I look forward to addressing additional questions.
Excellent, thank you. David, would you like to just take over the screen now and talk about UC Santa Cruz? You're muted, so I'm taking that as a yes. Thank you.
Let me see. Is that good?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Lindsey. That was great. I'm going to go over a little bit of the same things with regard to the application process later in my slides, but just wanted to first give you an idea of University of California, Santa Cruz. So University of California, Santa Cruz is a little bit different in the University of California system. It was actually started in the 1960s by the former chancellor of UC Berkeley and then president of the UC system. His name was Clark Kerr, and he actually had graduated from an undergraduate degree at Swarthmore University out on the East Coast, which is a liberal arts college, and then became the chancellor of UC Berkeley. And what he wanted to do was to create a combination of a liberal arts college and a research university, which Santa Cruz is now. So we have some of the same similarities to UC San Diego and UC Riverside, but one of the things that makes us a bit unique is that this you'll see in some of the numbers and some of the ways in which we emphasize our focus is a little bit more similar to a liberal arts college. So just like Lindsey was saying, we also are built on a college system. We have 10 colleges, and they originally were designed to be living and learning communities. So the faculty lived in the colleges and dined with the students, similar to what you might see in the UK or in small liberal arts colleges. That's changed a little bit over the years, but the students all still live in colleges. And the colleges are not associated with their major, but they are very much their home on campus. Even after students might choose to live off campus, they still associate with their college. And when they get their degree, they actually are from the college itself. Each college has a theme, and you will do, everybody in that college will take one course that represents that theme. But it really provides a sort of home base for advising, for getting to know other students, to social activities, and it's also where you'll live if you live on campus. We also have quite a large research reputation. I'll get to that with our rankings in just a minute. So what this means in this founding story of UC Santa Cruz is that many of the faculty who are attracted to come and work at UC Santa Cruz are really involved in mentoring undergraduate students and being involved with undergraduate student research. 75% of our students actually do research as undergraduate students, and this can start as a freshman and go all the way through their career. I've met many students, especially from India, who have been involved in things like bioinformatics and other kinds of research projects over 2 to 3, 4 years of their undergraduate career. And many of the faculty who choose to come to Santa Cruz really want that kind of experience and that focus. We're also a highly selective university and ranked very well. I'd just like to point out that two of the rankings that we're most proud of is our research influence and our undergraduate teaching, and we're quite well ranked in both of those areas. And so we, like I said in the last slide, we really focus on this kind of combination of mentorship and teaching of undergraduates, and also we produce a little bit less research because we're smaller, which you'll see in a minute, but the research is also very strong. So our location is in the middle of California. We're just below San Francisco and just about 20 miles away from Silicon Valley over a small mountain range called the Santa Cruz Mountains. We're also on the coast. But from our campus to Silicon Valley, depending on traffic, can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes to Cupertino or to Sunnyvale and other towns that you might have heard of. To San Francisco, it takes about an hour and a half. You can drive up the coast or you can go through Silicon Valley. So another thing that we really focus on at Santa Cruz is innovation and entrepreneurship and also interdisciplinary study. One of the areas which we are quite famous for is helping lead the Human Genome Project, which you might have heard of. We also have some strong work in DNA and molecular biology, bioinformatics, different types of biology combined with computer science. Another area which you might have heard of UC Santa Cruz is in physics. Many of our most prestigious faculty are associated with astrophysics, but so there's a strong theme within Santa Cruz of physics and astrophysics, but also as that translates into things like looking at data science, different types of algorithms and things like that. So there's a kind of, I would say, one theme that runs throughout Santa Cruz is a combination of computer science and then physics. Another area which you might not be aware of is Santa Cruz is also quite well known for its film and digital media. And we also have a digital game design that's growing in interest now. So just to go over some of the same things, and we can address these in the questions as Lindsey mentioned before, we also use the same criteria, which we can probably talk about in the question and answer period. The application itself is the UC application, which Lindsey already talked about, but it's basically a three-part. So you have your academic history, which is your transcript, you have your academic awards and activities, and then your personal insight questions. All of these areas are important. Would say just going to the question of GPA, which we can probably talk about in the question and answer period for students who are in the CBSE or the Indian curriculum, where any of the Indian curriculums where you take 10th and 12th grade exams. The way in which we deal with that from a GPA perspective is to look at your 10th grade exam. And then if you move, if you stay in the CBSE, that's what we'll pretty much focus on. If you move into the IB or some other type of curriculum, then we'll use your 11th grade IB scores and we'll combine those two things into a GPA. But we can talk about that more, probably Kim will ask about that. Historically, we've used things called the A through G, which is very California specific, but it basically means that we expect people to have a college prep background in course selection. The most important thing is 4 years of English and 3 to 4 years, this no problem. And there's going to be a little bit of change going forward in this area, but we can talk about that as well. I think Lindsey already went over the timeline, and that's it for me for my introduction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. That was a great presentation, another set of wonderful visuals. Let's see what June has for us.
No competition here, but I think everybody has fantastic graphics, although we don't have the beach here. So that's always something we're looking forward to. Yes. Okay, so everybody, great evening, and thank you for joining us. This is Jun Wang, and I'm currently serving as the Assistant Provost for International Recruitment and Strategic Initiatives at the UC Riverside. Just like Lindsey, I'm also a UC alum, and I'm actually a graduate from UC Riverside myself, and carry a lot of pride in the Highlander spirit, as well as the UC spirit. So today I'm having the pleasure to share you about my alma mater and our Pride campus located in Southern California. As you can see, our UC campuses are named after the cities we reside in, just like San Diego and Santa Cruz, where they are named after their city. We are named our proud location, which is Riverside, and which is located in Southern California and very close to San Diego and LA as well. So let me see if I can move forward. Just give you an idea in terms of location where we are. just like Lindsey and David has already well said, we are so proud to be part of the most amazing world-class public research university that is the UC system, by far the largest public university system, and probably overall combined as the #1, both in research and all areas of academic preparation in the world, right? The 10 campuses, 5 medical schools, and also 3 national laboratories, along with 150 academic programs that kind of comprise the whole UC system. So Riverside is located at the far east side of the California. We are the most inland located in the Inland Empire, which is around an hour away from east of LA. And this is actually also the highest latitude. That's why we have this called Highlander spirit, just like compared to England, we have this Scottish flavor. So we call ourselves Highlanders at the Riverside location. So a little bit about Riverside, just in case you haven't heard about us before. We are not just only a UC campus, we actually have this origin goes all the way back in the 1800s and early 1900s as the origin of the citrus experiment, actually were the birthplace of navel orange. So we have this tradition of agriculture in our spirit, and we grew as an agriculture experiment station, but later on joined the UC family in 1954, and proud to being a member of UC since then. And we have grown really fast over the past 10 years, I would say. And we now become one of the major research public university in the world, not just in agriculture, but in all areas that I will share with you. So location, right? And all of you obviously want to experience the California, also want to experience the California sunshine, the all kind of social and living experience here in the United States, in California. So we are actually very close to many locations, popular locations, like including Disney, the mountain resorts, the Joshua Tree National Park. So we call ourselves like 1 hour recreation zone. So within an hour in a day, you can go to the mountain to ski, and you can go to the ocean to surf. So which is kind of unique experience. I don't know if you can find that anywhere else in the world. So we're very proud of our location, and it's very ideal, very safe, and very beautiful. You get sunshine almost 300 days a year, which is pretty unique. So in terms of size of the campus, we're very similar sized, just like Santa Cruz. We have around 23,000 undergraduate students. We have about 1,000 faculty. So we kept this small campus flavor while we are in this public research university setting. So the class ratio is about 20:1, which is kind of still unique and give you this combination between a big university and a small class in-person flavor that you can get a really close tension with your faculty in terms of both research and the teaching experience. And we're very proud of our 115,000 alumni all over the world, including around 600 of them in India right now. And so we do have a very robust alumni system that supports our students and research activities. So currently we have 7 colleges, unlike San Diego and Santa Cruz, which have this residential college. We are more academic college setting. So we have 7 colleges. The one that is not listed here is the School of Medicine, which doesn't have the undergraduate programs. So the 6 programs showing on the screen are the undergraduate programs, the ones with undergraduate programs. So we have engineering, social art and humanity college, natural agriculture science, education, business, and public policy. And we offer almost 150 majors and minors across the 6 major disciplinary areas. So every school like to talk about ranking. There's one area we're very, very proud is we're #1 ranked in United States for social mobility, which means you can come in from a middle class or from a financial disadvantaged situation, and we can uplift you to where you want to be in your social standing. And that is pretty amazing considering our students are underprepared and how much we devote into undergraduate teaching, which also reflects in our teaching ranking. This year, we proudly ranked in the United States, number 34 among the undergraduate teaching, which tied with Harvard and UC Berkeley in terms of undergraduate teaching. Again, it's showing like our dedication in undergraduate teaching and how much we care about our students and how much we want to help our undergraduate students in the undergraduate classes. And of course, our engineering is also ranked very highly in the nation among the public universities, and also other areas which are related to our competitiveness in terms of our our pricing and as well as the cost to live here at the Riverside. So we're very proud of our research profiling, and that is represented in our faculty on campus. We do have 2 Nobel laureates, including one that actually graduated from UC Riverside in the 60s and won the Nobel Prize in 2005. We carry a lot of pride, just like all UCs, in research. We do a lot of research activities, all the way from the best agricultural programs to the biology, plant science, to engineering, chemistry, physics. So we have many discoveries that were originated from Riverside and carried around the world, including our most famous citrus collection, the biggest citrus collection in the world. Just like all the other research universities, we want to make sure everybody benefit from the research and not just the graduate students. So within our undergraduate population, we have a huge percentage of students participating in research, and we make sure our undergraduates have an opportunity to get into the lab, to experience this cutting edge research, and to get to know our faculty in a personal manner, to get to know the research topics in a closer setting. So this is one of the most unique features. So as I said, although a big university, research university, but undergraduates just get treated fairly with all the equal opportunities like graduate students. And also, I know Indian students, just like all international students, like myself, I was an international student, so we come to the United States and we care about what's after the undergraduate program, right? So we are very proud to say that we prepare our students for a wonderful career after the undergraduate programs. Again, we're #1 in social mobility. Then one area in that is the average salary our students get. So our undergraduates get average salary of $67,000, which is quite amazing, which is way above the national standard and definitely above the California standard. And we're very proud of many top companies, both headquartered in California and in the nation, use Riverside as a recruiting base, and we're always ranked very highly among the recruiters and HR for our students' performance after they get enrolled. And we also use a very robust career counseling system. On a daily basis, we have over 200,000 job opportunities shared with our students, and not just in the United States, but worldwide, including job opportunities in India, in Europe, and everywhere, where our students get these global career opportunities, and most of them get employed or go to graduate school within 6 months after graduation. So we'll make sure our students are getting employed or go to their dream graduate schools after that. And of course, just like all the other UCs, we participate in many study abroad programs to make sure our students are global citizens, have this global internationalized understanding, and have many study abroad opportunity, including summer opportunities after they get into UC Riverside. We also have this honors program that give a lot of the special treats to our top students with exceptional GPA. So if you have a 3.8 GPA or above, you get into the honors program, and we have a Nobel laureate teaching a small class setting with you and give you a personal coaching and mentoring. So it's quite unique to have an honors program that also accepts international students. As you can see, this is our housing. So if you come to UC Riverside, this is what you get as an undergraduate. Pretty amazing. living experience, and we're really proud in our brand new facilities. This year, we're adding 2 more housing facilities, another 1,000 rooms added on campus for freshmen. So we're a growing campus with a lot of new amenities. And we are also award-winning dining experience on campus. Our chef has won various awards among the nation, best chef for campus dining. And we're very proud of our menu, very global, internationalized. Every Wednesday we have like a Indian and South Asia food day. And so you actually get to experience your home cooking over here. A lot of robust and fun activities on campus with over 450 student organizations sharing your different cultural experience. A lot of international student organizations around on campus. And doesn't matter which religion you're coming from, which ethnicity you're coming from, you always find a home away from home here. And this is our brand new gym, or we call it a recreational center. It's a brand new facility, facilitated Olympic Games over here in 2017. And we're very proud to have this available for our students. And I know international students and parents care a lot about safety, and we take very seriously about our safety as well. So UC Riverside is very proud that we've been ranked very highly in terms of our campus safety in the nation. We do a lot of things to make sure our students, staff, and the faculty have a great experience and safe experience on campus. This is our #1 priority, to make sure students are safe and can study anytime on campus as they want. And like many other schools, we are very proud to accept international students on our campus. And one way to attract the top international students is by giving a achievement scholarship. So we do offer a $4,500 scholarship that is equivalent to $13,500 per year. And that is renewable every year if you can maintain a 3.0 GPA. So you can actually have this scholarship throughout your 4 years study at UC Riverside. So if you accept and apply and accept to become a Highlander, a UC Riverside student, you would get this. And just like Lindsey and David has already mentioned, UC has pretty much the same admission requirements, the A2G, the IB, AI, GCSE, all of this is very similar. So I'm just going to skip this and we'll leave it to the question area. So if you have a more specific question, we can help you to answer that. And of course, this COVID-19 is shocking everybody. I hope everybody is doing well in India right now. I know it's a global issue. It's very challenging. And same in California, we are going through this ourselves. And as you can see, we're all staying at home right now, working from home. But we're also making changes to make sure that our international students can adapt and make sure they can come to study with us in fall, or we can adopt some changes for next year's students who are applying for 2021 application. So right now, we are suspending a lot of this standardized test requirements, and we're extending the cert deadlines for freshmen as well. So hopefully all of you can apply next year and without too much hassle. So we, just like all the other UCs, we have one common application. So it's very simple. You just fill out one application form. You can apply to all 9 campuses with undergraduate programs. And we are listed. So just make sure you remember, check mark Riverside when you're applying, and and we will be very happy to facilitate you during your application process. And here is some beautiful pictures of our campus. This is the dormitory we offer with the mountains in the background and the beautiful sunshine and swimming pool ready for you. So of course, we're understanding it's a difficult time for everybody, and it's very difficult and challenging, especially considering you cannot come to campus physically. So we do have a very cool feature that is a virtual campus tour, like many campuses would have already. We have a virtual campus tour that's a 360 degrees view of every single classroom, every single lab, every single facility on campus, including the dormitories and dining facilities. So if you're interested in our campus, make sure you go on to that. We also have a online chat software called Unibuddy on our admissions website. So if you're interested in talking to our current students, feel free to just log on to admissions.uci.edu. You'll find at the bottom right corner, there's a little button there where you can chat with our current students about their experience, their testimonials, and any questions you may have. So that's it. And once again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share about our campus, and looking forward to welcome you next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jun, for an amazing and thorough presentation. I'm just going to share my screen. I think that between the three of you, you all covered different things, and you all covered everything between the three of you. So I think we're done. No, I'm just kidding. We are going to go on now to ask some, I have some questions prepared, but I'm getting so many questions about what you guys have talked about. So I'm almost tempted to do that first because it's just a bit more, you know, timely, and you all just mentioned it. And so David, you started it by mentioning the recalculation of GPA. So I have so many questions about that.
Okay, shoot.
Here we go. Mainly, students want to know how important are 10th grade scores in the UCs, and how is the GPA then computed? And then I'll ask you the next one. Are IB predicted grades an important data point for admissions, and do the UCs prefer the predicted grade to be included? They're saying in the transcript, but I know you don't accept transcripts, so I guess in the self-reporting, do you want to see predicted grades somehow? So why don't you answer?
I think you brought up a good point.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you bring up a good point with the fact that the application itself is self-reported. So that would mean that everything that you put into the application is self-reported. So if you are a CBSE student, for example, then you would self-report your 10th grade exams. And I think it's important that you talk with your counselors about how to do that in the right way. But I do, in my experience, you know, basically there might be a little bit of variation among the UCs, but I can talk from the Santa Cruz example. We would look at the 10th grade, we call 10th countries that have a 10th and 12th grade exam. So that would include the IGCSEs and the A-levels, or it also includes some Singapore and some other places, and many of the South Asian countries. We would take the 10th grade exams as the benchmark of the GPA, recognizing that many of the scores that are given for in-class grades are actually much lower than typically the 10th grade scores are, 10th grade exam scores. So then we would take those 10th grade exam scores, and if you just went on and got your CBSE, you know, diploma and finished your 12th grade, then that would be your GPA. If you did switch, which many students in India do, to IB program, then we would take the 10th grade exam scores, the final 10th grade exam scores, and then we would take your in-class IB scores. 6s and 7s would be A's, 5 would be B's, 4s would be C's, and we turn, so then we'd mix those two together. So basically 50% of your grades would be the CBSE scores, 50% would be the 11th grade in-class IB scores, and that would end up being your GPA. And as far as your question about the IB exam, or that for us, either the IB final exam scores or the predicted scores are not something that we typically would look at very much when we're making decisions. Okay. Mainly because of timing.
Right. Okay. So, so students, there's no way that you actually know their predicted scores. You will only see what was reported in 11th grade, whether in the IB or whether in a continued CBSE kind of a situation, correct?
If it's a CBSE kind of situation, we're just basically drawing the 10th grade exam scores. We don't look that carefully at the 11th grade in-class scores. That said, I didn't say one last thing, which is no matter what curriculum students are taking, we expect them to complete the curriculum. So if they are in the A-level curriculum, for example, of the IGCSEs, and they have, 5 or 6 or 7 IGCSEs, they need to have at least 3 A-levels, and they need to complete those A-levels. And at the end of the day, after we admit the students and we look at their final scores after, in the spring after they've been admitted, so around this time, we start asking for transcripts and we ask for the actual official test results from Cambridge Assessments or whoever. We will then look at those A-levels, and if they are significantly below what the 10th grade was, or the CBSEs, HICs, whatever, then we will potentially rescind the offer of admission.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the way it works in San Diego and Riverside. But.
Yeah, you guys want to, Lindsey, would you like to say anything else?
Yeah, I think, kind of going back as well, I agree with what David has shared. And going back to the point on predicted grades is that, it depends on the school and whether, our application is due so early. Students must submit the application by November 30th, and many schools don't have predicted IB scores available at that point. So some students may not be able to provide it. And then we also understand that many schools don't report or don't provide the predicted IB scores to the student directly. They only give them to the universities where the students are applying. Right. And the UC Gap is based on self-reported information. And so we don't have a way to collect the scores directly from the schools at this time. And so if they are not released to the students, we're not able to get that information in our application review. But it doesn't penalize the students in any way. So if their school doesn't provide predicted to them, or they're not yet available by November 30th, we don't penalize the student for not providing predicted scores. As David mentioned, they could be available to us to view on the application, but it's not a significant part of reviewing a student from an IB school. So because we're going to look at the performance in 10th grade, we're going to look at, whatever exams they took, whether they were in the CBSE curriculum, whether they were in IGCSEs and they're switching to IB, if they were at, an American school or whatever it was that they did in 10th grade, we'll look at that. And then 11th grade, as David has already gone through.
Okay. June, anything to add different that UC Riverside?
No, I say it's very similar. All the UC's reviewing criteria, it's almost the same. We'll carry the same protocol and guidelines. One thing UC Riverside does a little bit different is we kind of tends to be more flexible in terms of the deadline for submitting all the scores. So we can wait all the way till like March. For this year, we even waited a little bit longer just to make sure students who have updates, who have later score updates, we can be able to accommodate them. So just for that, saying that if students do not have those grades available by November, that's okay. And just apply, just fill out as much information as they can, and they can update by emailing us any information they have later on. So. And we kind of trying to accommodate all kind of requests. And I myself, I came from IB. I completely understand the frustration students may have with grading conversion, with the toughness of IB grading, right? So we understand that completely. And we like to give them as much headway as possible.
Okay, so since you're already on, June, I have a question for you, because I think it's kind of unique and to UC Riverside in a way. But first question is, for students in the Indian curriculum or in the national curriculum, CBSE, HSC, whatever, do you have an English grade requirement, like a minimum requirement for students in English? Is the first part of my question. And then the second part of my question is, because you guys offer business, do you have a particular math that you're looking for students who want to study business? So can you answer those?
First off, yeah, absolutely. So first of all, A2G requirement is pretty consistent. So we do require minimum grade letter of C or above for all of those courses.
Okay.
Studying A2G, just like all other UCs, I think that's pretty consistent. And please, David and Lindsey, correct me if I'm wrong. on that. But other than that, business, just like all other undergraduate majors, there's no difference in terms of A to G requirements. So in maths requirements for minimum grades is no difference on that part. Although our business majors do not have much like calculus or like pre-calculus requirements, I mean, I think if I remember correctly, all we're looking for is advanced algebra and that kind of preparation. So, and students do not need to take calculus after they get into freshman. So they do not have to worry about a high level maths if they're in IB already or IGCSE if they need to take advanced maths classes. But if they meet the minimum requirement of A to G, they're fine.
Okay, and you mentioned being flexible, and I noticed the A to G requirements have things in there like a social science. So if you have a student who, which we see sometimes in India, just hasn't done a social science in their, let's say, ICSE, and then in ISC they do commerce or science, and then there's no social science there. So basically they haven't had social science in high school. So can you be flexible with that, or is that just kind of you haven't, a student has not in that case met an A to G requirement?
No. We definitely consider all situations. We understand that completely, and so we try to accommodate as much as we can within the framework of the UC requirements for admissions. So we're trying to count those credits towards the similar areas as much as possible. But if it's too much a stretch, of course not. But if it's very similar, like what you said in that particular situation, it should be available for the student.
David, do you have anything different about to say about Santa Cruz's requirements?
I would say for English, first of all, I mean, I'm not exactly sure how many students we have on today are from India, but in general, Indian students, we assume they're an English language curriculum to start with. So we don't necessarily require the TOEFL or the IELTS for Indian students. If you do have students who are, for example, in Gulf countries, that might be slightly different, but for most students who would be in South Asia, that would be the case. So if that's the question. In terms of the A through Gs, I think you're going to be seeing a little bit more flexibility when it comes to out-of-state and international students for A through Gs. This is something that's still a bit of a work in progress, I think, at the UC level. But from what we understand, early indications are there'll be a bit more flexibility in trying to understand the curriculum in which students are in and how that reflects the A through G. The A through G was actually developed to be a California-centric process. Mm-hmm. And so I think Jun and Lindsey would say that we all go to every extent we can to try and fit whatever curriculum that we see students from into that, but sometimes it takes, we're trying to find a way to make it a little bit easier on our admission staff because the last thing we want to do is to, what happens if you don't meet A through G, or if you don't meet one of the other criteria, you go into this category called admit by exception. And that's kind of just a strange category. Then people should not be going into that if they have a strong college prep curriculum.
Right, which if they haven't done a performing or visual art, they might go into, right?
Yeah, and typically in our case, at least from India, we would not be doing that. You have so many students who are doing very high level piano or other things, Indian dance, there's just so many other ways that they're doing that art and music right. And performing arts. So
and that's taken into account. Okay, that's great. Yeah. Lindsey, do you have anything to add there? If not, I have something to add to the question, but go ahead.
I think when you think about A through G requirements, it's also about meeting the spirit of the requirement. And so David mentioned this a little bit, but we're really looking at the curriculum of where you are. So for example, a student in A levels will probably never meet the A through G requirements, because in A levels, if you're only taking 3 subjects in what we hold equivalent to 11th and 12th grade, you may not have really high numbers in a lot of those A through G areas. And so that's why when we talk about specific curriculums, we may talk about requirements for that specific curriculum. So 3 A levels. That's our requirement, is we're looking for that, and that may not fit perfectly into an A through G count. And so it's really about, are students prepared to be successful in college, and how are we judging that as we're looking at their application? Have they fulfilled requirements to go to college in that education system they're in? So are they prepared to be successful in a UK system if they're doing A levels? That's what we're looking for as we're reviewing their application. Are they successful to be able to go to a college in India by completing their year 10 and year 12 exams that they've done? That's what we're going to look at as well. So we really do try to understand, are they prepared to be successful? Have they fulfilled the requirements within that education system they're in? And I think that that's so important before students get really caught up on trying to count their A through G, is how competitive are they in that system?
Okay. Understood. So along those lines, I have a question about, how do you evaluate in that case, and maybe it's tricky or maybe it's straightforward, I don't know, a student, an American student in, studying studying abroad? Or how are they kind of looked at differently? I think that's the question. Is the application process different for US citizens than it is for Indian students studying in India? Or is it school-based, school-wise?
So the way that we review applications at UC San Diego, I can speak to that process. Well, first of all, the UC application is a UC application. So everybody fills out the same application when they apply, regardless of whether they're located in the US or out. But when we review applications at UC San Diego, it's based on school and where that school is located. So the person's going to review the applications from that school, all those applications in India or in Singapore or wherever they're looking at. So it's not about citizenship type. When we review applications, we review them by what curriculum type or what school the student's in. And that's probably going to vary based on each campus, but that's what we do at UC San Diego.
Okay.
I think just to kind of, so one of the things I think is helpful to think about when you're thinking about how to make, if you're in 11th grade or if you're in 10th grade now, and you're going to be going into 11th grade or 12th grade, this is US grades. So I think that one way to think about it is within the context of your school and in your environment, have you taken advantage of every opportunity that you had? Not every opportunity, but how have you taken advantage of opportunities? So we tend to look at a student, given that student's situation, what did they do when they had a choice? So one student who might be in a IB school would have a different set of opportunities than a student who might be in a CBSE school or an ISE school. And so we very much try and take that into account, no matter where the school is. It could be, down the street in Riverside, or it could be in Mumbai. And so we look, I think, at the more selective, and especially the more selective majors, we're looking for that type of decision-making process on behalf of the student. So there's no real formula. It's very much of a question of when the student had the choice, what opportunities did they take advantage of? Yeah.
Okay. All right, Jun, I'm going to move on and ask you the next question. So I think you've all spoken about the UC sort of what parts of the application process have been relaxed this year. And so along those lines, I just wanted to know, do you think will certain aspects, because you may be looking at a transcript, like you said, that has pass-fail grades in 11th grade, or that has just no extracurricular activities for this entire period or whatever. So in that case, are certain things going to be sort of weighted more, or are you going to look at them differently? And in particular, would things like someone's asking, demonstrated interest matter, and what about interviews? Any of those things will weigh into the process this year?
Yeah, excellent question. I think although that all UCs have this common application, we have the common requirements and standard for admissions, but every campus kind of use a different set of metrics and ways to evaluate the students for their admission, especially for, we call it a non-resident, basically including out-of-state and international students together as a pool. So like David has mentioned earlier, the different criteria we can use and different ways we can use to evaluate and admit students, especially if they are international. So there's more wiggle room in terms of flexibility. In terms of paying attention to specific aspects, our number one criteria right now is given the special situation of next year that we may not consider SAT as at least is optional. So we are relying, at least for U series, we're relying a lot more on GPA. So we do hope students can uplift the GPA and do as much as they can during the last year between now and November. They can kind of improve their GPA to the standard. Where we also look at, we don't have this comprehensive, or we call it, we don't have the comprehensive reviewing process in terms of like we don't interview students like private school would traditionally do. And I know UCLA has a different way to evaluate. They have like external evaluators does that kind of stuff. Every campus does it differently in that sense. So for us, we're pretty straightforward. We're looking at students' profile, we look at their statements, we look at their academic performance, but most the weight is in the GPA for next year, I would say. So of course, their background, the special talents, anything that can highlight their performance, interest in our school, all of that matters, right? So it's an overall review, but heavily relying on GPA for next year.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. Anything, either Lindsey, David, anything you'd say differently? Lindsey?
I think, I mean, we don't, I don't know if we all know at this point. But I would say one thing that we have heard is that if you have the opportunity to take the SAT, or if you have the opportunity to take the ACT, it can benefit you in terms of certain types of scholarships, and also it might benefit you in terms of certain capped. Well, for us, we have one capped major, as we call it screening major, which is the computer science. So computer science is very competitive, I think, mostly across all of the UCs. And so I think that if students do have the opportunity to take the SAT or the ACT, I don't think it's something that typically hurts students in general. I think there's I could go on the ACT and the SAT for quite a long time, but I think that there's a misunderstanding by many students about how the ACT and SAT are used. It's typically used to help students in the context like South Asia than it would be to hurt them. So if you do have the opportunity to take it, or if you have taken it, I definitely would go ahead and submit it.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Yeah, along those lines, you just mentioned something that I also wanted to ask, and I want you to say this because I've heard you say it in other contexts, but talking about competitive majors like computer science, can each of you say a little bit about changing majors in your college? What's allowed, what's not allowed, what's possible, what's not possible? So David?
I can go first because it's very quick for me. If you would like to, this again might change next year depending on what happens this year, but at this point we only have computer science as this type of major. If you want to be a computer science major, you have to apply and have that as your first choice of major. And like Lindsey said, we strongly encourage people to have a second choice of major if they're indicating computer science as their first choice of major, because sometimes we will not admit them for computer science, but we will admit them for computer science and game design, for example. But yes, computer science is the only major that at UC Santa Cruz that you have to indicate in advance before you come that you cannot get into otherwise. So if any other major, you can change your indicated choice of major when you enter. And just quickly, I think there's also, just to clarify, especially for South Asian students and families, when you indicate your choice of major at most US universities, except for certain majors like computer science, it really is just your indication at the time. And a full, at University of Wisconsin, where I used to work, 50% of students would change their major. So you still have to do several things to actually declare the major, and typically in your sophomore year usually, that you would need to complete certain classes and have a GPA above a certain level to be able to commit to that major. So it's a little different than the Indian system. So.
Got it. Okay. Lindsey, anything different at UC San Diego?
Yeah, so at UC San Diego, we actually have a number of capped majors. So there's quite a few of them that have a process attached to getting into the major. So we do encourage students that are interested in any of our capped majors to apply with them as their first choice, because again, there's most opportunity to get into it when you first apply. So you should indicate it as a first choice, and then you can indicate an alternate major that we'll consider you for. And then we will also consider those students who we aren't able to offer their first or alternate. Some of those students will also be considered to enter the university as undecided. Once you're at UC San Diego, you do have the opportunity to apply into those capped majors after you've completed a certain set of coursework, and each major is going to have their own set of requirements for courses that you have to take. So something like mathematics, you're going to take the core calculus curriculum and some additional courses, and then you have to achieve a certain GPA. And if they have 100 applicants and they have 60 spots, they take the 60 highest GPAs. But for some of our other majors, they are highly competitive. So something like computer science, if you're a student at UC San Diego and you're interested in switching into computer science, there are a certain set of courses that you have to take, and you have to achieve a certain GPA. And if you're able to do that, you are placed in a lottery system, and names are pulled out of a lottery of whether or not you can get into the major, because it is so highly competitive for computer science. And some of our other engineering majors may adapt that model as well. So, you could have a 4.0 GPA and still not be able to switch into the major. And we think that's important for students to know before they make the decision to attend UC San Diego, if they have the opportunity to study something like computer science at another university where they've been admitted. So it's just something to consider. There is the possibility to switch the major, but it is possible that you'll never be able to get into it.
Yeah, and I think that UC San Diego is I don't know if all UCs do this, but I see it a lot, is this admit into undeclared, or you admit students not into the major they've requested, but into undeclared, and then they all come and ask us like, then can I get into computer science later? And then I tell the story about the lottery. So
Yes, yeah. So we do consider students for undecided, because we know a lot of students will change their mind, and they may be considering or interested in studying something else they didn't apply to. That's not always the case for computer science. A lot of those students know they want to study computer science, but for some other majors, if a student was interested in mechanical engineering, sometimes they're interested in coming to UC San Diego and studying physics instead or something else. And we want to give them that opportunity to be able to do that if they want to change their mind.
Okay, June, I'll also let you say something about changing majors, but I just want to tell our audience that today, because we have 3 representatives on and we're going to take a little more time, we are going to go until 10:15, so just another 12 minutes. So please do stay with us if you can. June, what about changing majors at UC Riverside?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to clarify that every campus is different in terms of popular majors, the ranking, number of applicants. So that really differentiates from university to university or campus to campus. So Riverside, currently we don't have a cap for any single major, although computer science is extremely competitive, by far has the highest admission standard compared to other majors. So that is just by default, right? Doesn't matter the students where they're coming from, California or international. Computer science right now is just a hard demand major. So just like all other UCs, computer science is very competitive. So we do encourage students who do qualify, put this as your first choice for your selection, but do consider alternative major in a similar area where give you a potential pathway to transfer and change major in the later time. So we do have computer engineering and as well as business informatics, and those are also jointly presented by the computer science department. And the first 2 years general study is almost similar, just like computer science majors. So if a student could not get into computer science during the freshman time, they could also choose those 2 majors, and later on at the end of the sophomore year and request a change of major if they meet the minimum requirements. Usually it's not as high as they would have achieved during the high school time. So that kind of gives them alternative choice to change major later on, but stay in the same area, just like Lindsey said. It's very important they're in the similar area where they completed the general education requirements and the computer science requirements. So in terms of change major, it's easier at a UC Riverside in that sense, I think.
Great, thank you. Okay, so this question I think is a fun question, so I want to ask each of you. But you can only, but you have to answer it quickly, so we don't have enough time. But for the audience, just so you know, the UCs have 8 personal insight questions, and each applicant has to choose 4 and write on them. And I won't go through what each of them is, but you will get a sense when each of our representatives answers my question, which is, can you share your favorite essay question? So say a little bit about what you think, what role did these essays play in the application process, and which one is your favorite and why? So David.
You asked me first. Actually, I have to admit something, that I don't really think it's important which question you answer. I think, and I don't know if you're going to hear the same thing from the other 2 panelists, but I think what's important, and I often recommend this to students and counselors, is that you basically figure out what have you done in life, what you're really passionate about, put it up in a big piece of white paper, and then figure out, 4 things that you really want to focus on out of that. And it might be, some experience you had, it might be your hobby, it might be the passion for computer science, and then go and pick the 4 questions that match those 4 areas. And that's, I think it, many times those of us reading, the secret, at least for my secret, is that sometimes I don't know what question people are answering. And it doesn't really matter when I read the question or the answer. So what matters is that you're giving some concrete examples that really relates to you and not your grandparents or somebody else. And that it really comes alive for you. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Thank you. That's great. Good advice. Jun?
Yeah, I completely agree and kind of agree more with David. There's really no favorite question here or answer here. What I'm looking for in those questions and answers is honesty and the truthful telling about their story. And I would totally, after reading tens, thousands of this kind of answers, now I'm just like reading one, I know this is written by someone else, right? This is not the student writing it, it's either the parent, counselor, or they paid someone to write it. It's so obvious, you can tell, like we are professionals in this field. Well, each of us carry like a dozen years of experience in this role. So it's seriously, like a student, just do from your bottom of your heart, write about your personal story, share your experience honestly and truthfully, and then we would know that it's so blandly out there, right? So you just don't lie, don't cheat, don't try to make up things or mark up things that is not true, right? We don't need a beautiful story, we just need a true story here. Yeah.
I try to tell students, and you can tell me if this is good advice or bad advice, that if there's 4 questions, like you said, David, this white piece of paper should have different things on it. So don't write 4 answers that are all about the same thing so that I still see only one piece of you. So I guess that's another thing. Be yourself and be multidimensional. Okay, Lindsey, now I'll let you answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with everyone. I think that with the personal insight questions, it's so important to use your authentic voice. Earlier, I mentioned to think of them like an interview. We don't have the opportunity to interview students. We had over 100,000 applications for first years last year. We can't possibly interview those students. And so we think of the personal insight questions as that interview. So it's your opportunity to talk to us. And that's what I enjoy reading, is when I can feel like I'm having a conversation with the student by reading it. And it is not a creative writing project. So you don't need to be using analogies and other things in it. But I think one of the questions that I really enjoy when I read it and I can see students' passion come through is when they talk about how they've had a positive impact on their community. I think often I read about really incredible projects and research or other things that students are doing, and just the different ways students think about how they've impacted their community, I think is incredible. And you can really see passion shine through from students in reading that. And I think that that's what's so important to me as I read it, is that I truly see what they're interested in and I see how they demonstrate that. So they're talking about real actionable things that they've done in their community to make an impact. And I think that that's really cool.
That's great. Do these questions, I mean, if like you guys all said earlier that, you know, the GPA is the grades and the academics are really, you know, sort of the core of this whole thing. So do the essays kind of are they just additive, or can they really change the course of an application's sort of trajectory?
I think that's a great question, and people ask us that all the time. They are considered added value. So I think that, you know, often we start with looking at things like academics as really setting a baseline. You know, we want students that are going to be successful at the university. We don't want to bring in students that won't be able to achieve, you know, within the academic context of the institution. And then these personal insight questions and other things, they can change admissions decisions. They can make a big impact, but they're really considered, for us, added value. So they really add to the application. They give us additional insight about the students. That's why they're called personal insight questions.
Yeah, interesting.
I you know, sometimes when I'm out talking to students and counselors, I give an example of application I read where really it wasn't clear to me until I got to the fourth answer. And so I always say that we read the entire application, every word. We don't make decisions based on the front half or the back half or whatever. So we read everything. And sometimes, you know, like Jun said, you know, you'll get the first three of them, which will be, you know, you've read 100 times, and you get to the fourth one and somebody's, you know, I give the example sometimes of somebody who started a website on poetry of, you know, Gujarat poetry or something, and, you know, has interviewed 20 famous poets and built a website and all this and won awards and everything. And you're like, oh, but they want to study computer science. And I'm like, fantastic. You know, they're an entrepreneur. They've done something, you know, they've just separated themselves out of that last thing where they didn't think we needed to know that because it has what they think nothing to do with computer science. But for us, it's just that ability to kind of come outside of themselves and, like Lindsey said, contribute to their community. That's
great. Okay. Thank you. I think this probably is going to be one of my last questions. And if you can maybe, I mean, the reason I want to ask this question, I mean, I had several questions that I didn't even get to, but this is important, I think, because, you know, we all know that at a UC campus, you know, the majority of the students are, you know, from California and, you know, have local connections and have, you know, sort of parents to go, you know, crash on their couch if they don't get a job right away or whatever. But what do you do? How do your universities support international students with internships and jobs? Because I think that's a really important question that people have about public universities. Is like, you know, is this institution going to care as much about my student, my investment, my expectations as, you know, a private institution or something? So can you each speak about that briefly? Lindsey?
So at UC San Diego, we have a very vibrant career center that does offer a lot of different opportunities to our students. So they have, you know, individual advising, and they do meet with international students to talk about what those opportunities may look like for them if they're looking to obtain visas that are specific to being able to stay and work in the US. Of course, we have OPT available to our students that are interested in doing that upon graduation. And we have a wonderful international students and programs office with immigration advisors and others that are there to assist them with understanding that process. We do have job fairs each quarter at the university, and we have plenty of employers that come in and that are willing to hire international students. Our largest employer of our graduates is Google, and then following that, we have a variety of other large employers, you know, engineering organizations and others that are hiring our students, and many of them are able to hire our international students as well. So it just depends. We also have very active international student organizations that will bring employers in or others to speak about the opportunities that are available for our international students and prepare them for job interviews and other things upon graduation. Lots of different ways to look at it and different support services available at the universities for the students.
Great, thank you. David?
I basically, I would say basically what what Lindsey said is pretty much the same as Santa Cruz. I think that one thing that I often tell students and families when I meet with them is that you really have to kind of find a way to gain some skills as an undergrad student. And so the more you can participate in research projects outside of class, learn different kinds of software packages and get some real life experience, the better off you're going to be when you apply, because usually employers are looking for something they can do right away. So as you even if you're not a student in computer science, learning how to use different kinds of computer coding or some sort of statistical analysis software package can really be beneficial to getting jobs. I mean, that's what we've seen. We're right next to Silicon Valley, and I would say that's typically the story. They're not, so, but all the things that I'm sure Lindsey and Jun will say are similar other than that.
Jun, how does UC Riverside support international
Yeah.
students?
Yeah, just like Lindsey and David said, all the UCs have this kind of like a centralized campus-wide career center that will help every single student with the career counseling services. I think I listed on my PowerPoint, and we actually have, beyond that, so we have a 40 staff full house career center that supports the 25,000 students on campus. It doesn't matter if they are domestic or international, or give them the same experience. But for international, we understand that there's needs, and as you said, they don't have family support, they don't have this social networking. They need a little bit more support in terms of getting the first job, first internship, first experience. Like David said, how do you get the first impression in front of the employer, because you just don't have those, same as the Californians. So we created a program called Get Hired, and it is tailored for international students. So we have a different tier of mentorship. So we have graduate students are helping undergraduate students, alumni helping undergraduate and graduates. So we're kind of having this community driven. So there's a mentorship in between, and we understand the difficulties for international students to break the ground. So that program is a good cohort where students can come in all the way from resume writing to interview skills to how to dress up, or how to write a message to people, strangers on LinkedIn. I mean, there's so much details around it that we make sure students, especially international students, get it. And so they can kind of get to the first interview at least, and then first internship, or first co-op, and first jobs. But also, like David said, is so I used to do career counseling. I completely understand it's how difficult it is for the students to get a first job, right? So just not just international students, but all students. So we make sure every single students get at least one undergraduate research experience while they're on campus, and at least one internship before they graduate. So in that sense, if the opportunity is very difficult to get on campus, we make sure they can get inside campus. Like Lindsey said, we offer a lot of on-campus job opportunities for students, although we don't give priorities to any whether they come from international or domestic, but students can apply, right? So we don't differentiate. We'll give opportunity equally to everybody. So a lot of international students work on campus in different departments, and so they get to the first job just on campus, and that is very easy way for them to gain experience and financial support. So we do have a very robust system in that sense.
Great. Well, I mean, we are out of time, and I'm sorry to say that, because I could go on all day, but I won't. I know you guys all have someplace else to be. For the audience, I would like to just show this slide one more time. These are the representatives that are with us today, and also the email addresses where you can reach them or reach their offices and ask any more questions you might have. I hope I got to everyone's questions. If I didn't, maybe you can just directly email one of our panelists, because they seem really willing and ready to answer your questions. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate it, and I've enjoyed this so much, and it's been wonderful having you with us, and we will be in touch with sending our students your way. Thank you so much.